Hello everyone and welcome to this channel. Today we'll be looking at currency risk management. All right. Basically, there are two risks as far as advanced financial management and the strategic financial management exam is concerned. The first one is the currency risk and the second one is the interest rate risk. What is currency risk? Currency risk is simply the risk that my cash flow is going to be affected as a result of changes or movement in exchange rate, meaning that I can have a foreign liability or a foreign asset, right? If I'm not going to be settling this transaction today, I'm not receiving this foreign asset today, it means that the fact that you decide to receive it at a later date, it's possible that the exchange rate is going to be moving and you don't know whether it's going to be moving positively or negatively against you, and that risk is what you call the currency risk. On the other hand, if you come to the interest rate risk is a risk that interest rate is going to be moving adversely to affect the cash flow of a business. For instance, there are two things you can do to be affected by interest rate. It's either you're investing. Investing means that if you are not investing now, it means that it's possible that the interest rate is going to be increasing or reducing. And if you also want to borrow money tomorrow other than today, it means that it's also possible that the interest rate is going to be moving. All right, and because you are not certain of how this interest rate will move, it becomes a risk for your business, and this risk affects cash flow directly. All right, and so one of the things or the issues here is how to hedge against this interest rate or the currency risk. And in today's video, we'll be looking at how to hedge against currency risk. All right, and I've just said that currency risk is simply the risk that exchange rate is going to be moving adversely to affect a business cash flow. All right, so what are the hedging methods? The first hedging method we are going to be looking at is the forward rate agreement. All right, what's the forward rate agreement? Forward rate agreement is simply a contract that tells you how much exchange rate or what quote is going to be used in nearest future to convert your exposure. Let me put it that way. So it means if I'm expecting $20,000 in 3 months, right? What exchange rate am I going to be using when this money comes? Because eventually when I receive this $20,000, I'm going to be selling it in the market, right? And if it's a liability, it means when I'm going to be making this liability in 3 months' time, what exchange quote is going to be used? It means that the two parties will agree on a rate in which this exposure, will be exchanged or converted in the nearest future. And that's basically what forward rate is all about. In today's video also, I'll be explaining to you how to actually hedge using forward rate agreement in currency risk management. So let's go. We are looking at currency risk management. First thing first, we must understand what a quote means. If I have, let's say my quote is dollar to pound is 1.82. What this simply means for me is that I need $1.82 in exchange for 1 unit of pounds. All right, and if I have pound to dollar 1.82, for instance, what this simply means also is that I need 1.82 pounds in exchange for 1 unit of dollar. All right. The issue here is that in the exam, most times your quote given to you is usually with a spread. What do I mean by spread? The rate given to you has two extreme edges, right? Now, you have the lower edge and you have the higher edge. The lower edge is always telling you that, oh, this is the bid price, right? And why the selling part is the offer price. And this is how it comes. Like dollar to pound equals to 1.82 to 2.00. Now, what the bank or what these FX people are trading on here is actually the sales of pounds, right? This is saying that I need for you to be able to get 1 unit of pounds, you need to bring $1.82 unit of dollar, right, to get 1 pound. All right, so if this is the case, it simply means that in the exam, we would always assume the disadvantaged position. What is that disadvantaged position? The disadvantaged position is the position that keeps you at a disadvantaged side. Meaning that if I'm going to be expecting a receipt, I should pick a rate in converting that will give me the lowest receipt or the lower receipt. If it's a liability, I should use a rate or the quote that will give me a higher, higher liability or higher payment. And the reason for that is simple, because the bank would always be out there to make the margin, to make the profit, because they are the one trading this FX. And so in that case, they want to buy from you at the lowest possible price and sell to you at the highest possible price. Now let's go into an illustration on how this forward market agreement works. Now, for instance, let's say that my exposure equals to 20,000. £20,000. All right, and I want to hedge this for 3 months. And this exposure is a receipt. Receipt means that in 3 months' time, I'm going to be expecting a receipt of £20,000. Now, how should this be hedged using the forward market? Now, in the exam, what you would have, you have the spot rate. Spot rate is the ruling quote, which is the quote as at today. And the quote as at today from this our illustration, let's say, is dollar to pound equals to 1.82 to 2.00. If that is the case, now, first thing first, we need to understand this quote. Again, I've explained. The quote is saying $1.82 in exchange for 1 unit of pounds, up to $2 in exchange for 1 unit of pounds. Now, if I'm expected to convert this $20,000, there's a video I made on how to do conversion, right? Converting, there are 2 basic rules, all right? The first rule is the multiplication rule. And the second rule is the division rule. Now, this exposure, what we are saying is multiplying this, your exposure currency, by this quote. That's the multiplication, or dividing by the quote, right? So now, in the exam, what do you do here? There can only be one method or one approach. It's either you're going to be multiplying or you are going to be dividing. In that case, let's say we want to try this multiplication rule. If I'm multiplying, it simply means that I'll be writing this quote. This quote is same thing as dollar over pound, right? If I'm multiplying, multiply by pounds, right? Because the exposure currency is pounds, multiply by pounds. So straight up, I can actually cross out pounds to cancel pounds. So it simply means that multiplication rule is what we are going to be using here. In that case, the next thing is to know which of these quotes I'm going to be using. Now that is multiplication. Remember, you must always assume to be at the disadvantaged position. Meaning that if this is a receipt, I should convert using the quote that will give me the lower receipt. If this were to be a payment or a liability, I should convert this using the quote that will give me a higher payment. And that's how this works. All right, in this case, my expected receipt, remember dollar receipt now, in 3 months, because I'm multiplying, the quote that will give me the lower receipt should definitely be the 1.82. And so my expected receipt should be 1.82 multiplied by 20,000, right? And this should give me how much dollar? 36,400. And this becomes my expected receipt, all right, using forward rate. So basically what you need to know in forward rate agreement is simply how to interpret quotes. Number two, how to convert. Conversion means you need to understand whether it's a multiplication or it's a division, all right? And the third thing you need to look at is which of these quotes, especially when you're giving two extreme rates, which of these quotes will give you a lower receipt or a higher receipt. When it's a receipt, if your exposure is a receipt, you should use a quote that gives the lower receipt, because that's what will put you at a disadvantaged position. If it's a liability, you should use a quote that will give you the higher payment, because that is what will keep you in a disadvantaged position. And that's how forward rate agreement works in currency risk management. Please, if you have any issue, any question, please put it on the comment section. Thank you for watching, and see you again in the next video.